evening and welcome back to episode 14 of the Hillians Talk podcast. Here, coming to you live from the actual football club, not from Lynden's house today. So that's,
you've dragged me
different.
out.
The reason is because we've got a very exciting guest making an appearance today. I'm delighted to say that Lewis Taylor is joining us. Lewis, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
No, thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to it, to be honest.
Good. Firstly, how are you? Are you well?
I'm good. Yeah, very well, thank you. Yeah,
good.
Looking forward to training in a bit.
Yes, there you go. That is the reason that we're in the club, because obviously Lewis is obviously part of the management, so he'll be undertaking the training with the boys later. Lewis, I mean, to be honest, we could probably start anywhere, to be honest, with you, but something I always like to start on is sort of reminiscing and reflecting on last year, on last season. We've obviously spoke to Jay on here about it, to Gary on here about it, players as well, but you're somebody who's played the game, played at a top level, coached at a top level, but just from your own personal perspective, how good was last year from being in part of it to from the start of the season to where it all finished at Sittingbourne? How was it for you from a personal point of view?
Honestly, it's one of the best sort of nights and best seasons I've had in football, and I genuinely do mean that. I know some people can come on and just say what they think people want to hear, but I actually genuinely do mean that, and I mean that in a number of reasons really. I think, as I say, it's for me personally, it was not quite the season originally that I wanted to end my playing career on. I wanted to play a little bit more. I always knew that last season was going to be my last season. Right. But then to have the opportunity and Gary obviously to ask me to come in and be like that sort of player assistant manager at the start of the season and build something very special through the summer, which we knew in our heads that if we got it right, we could do that. And to actually see that plan come off, I think was what made it even more special for me from a personal point of view, and obviously I think Gaz is exactly the same. But then again, saying that it's all right bringing the boys in and saying that this is what we want, etc. The squad to deliver what they did last year, and take away the playoff final, games leading up to it, the way the boys were, their effort, their commitment from day one, buying into everything that me and Gary and Jay, wanted to do, was second to none. And then obviously to crown it that night down at Sittingbourne, the way we did, I think was, just capped off what was, you would call a near on sort of perfect season really for where we was that summer before. So all in all, I think it was an unbelievable night. As I say, I think we could tell that by the fans as well. Their reaction was and you know what? I know again it probably sounds like a cliche thing to say, but I've been here for 4 or 5 years now, and the fans are a real good group down here. So to be able to actually give them something that I feel, again, me personally feel they deserve, again, just makes it even more special. So, for me, it's one of the best seasons I've had in the game.
Absolutely, and just sort of finishing up on the Sittingbourne game. Obviously, as you mentioned, it was the course of the whole season. We had a fantastic season. It wasn't just the sort of end result, which it all culminated in. But just again, just from your point of view, just sort of looking back at the actual Sittingbourne game itself, obviously we went 1-0 down, and then obviously got back into it, and then it goes all the way through to extra time and penalties. When you're on sort of on the sideline, and when you're in the coaching staff at this point, when it goes to extra time, when it's half time of extra time, you've got to start thinking about penalties and things like that. Was it always the belief, in our group that if we take it to extra time, we're probably a bit fitter. If we could take it to penalties, we could probably, with the players we've got, nick it. Was that always our belief? Was it always,
Yeah, look, I think any game you go into, I think everyone believes that they're going to win. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. Yeah. But and again, from a management perspective, we worked really hard leading up to that game. Like we did on every game, but we knew this was a real big game, and I don't know, there was just something from sort of minute one we felt like this is our night. The boys really deserve it. They as I said, they were buying into everything, and then we started, and I think everyone will remember the first sort of 20-25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. As I say, we were a goal down, and we weren't playing our game, and and from the sideline, we were thinking, why not? Do you know? Is it nerves? Is it a big game for people? Is it just Sittingbourne are doing what they need to do really well, etc. And I'll always remember it. As I say, we went in at half time, and Gaz just sort of was looking around, and we was sort of doing what we usually do, make sure the boys were all right at first, etc., etc. And then he literally just turned around and sort of, and I always remember well, not exactly word for word, but the words along the lines were, boys, we've come this far. We've had a season doing what we do as a football team. Why are we playing the way that Sittingbourne want us to play? We need to go back to doing what we've done, what we've worked on through, day one of pre-season to where we're now. And I always remember it was just something I think stuck with me, but also I think you could see around the dressing room, it really hit home with the boys. And we just come out second half, and honestly, I didn't even think it was going to go to extra time, because I think, if anyone was actually watching that game, no discredit to Sittingbourne, but, they were hanging on. I think second half it was, and again, we had a number of really good performances through the season, but I honestly think that the second half against Sittingbourne was definitely one of the best we played all that season as well, and to deliver that again, as I say, in the situation we was in, is again just credit to the boys that we had. But yeah, that always stuck with me. So I think for me personally, that, to answer your question in a sort of long-winded way, I always had confidence, and I always really did believe that for some reason that night was going to be ours, and even more so just. And again, you'll speak to players and they might mention it. There's always certain things through a season or through, times in a game that certain things for some reason stick in your head. And that was always one. And I just see in the dressing room that a lot of the boys, that really hit home with them as well. And I really do think that from that minute as well, I don't think anyone in that dressing room didn't believe that we were going to go on and get that result.
What was it like watching it from the sidelines for such a long period of time, seeing as it went to extra time and penalties? I imagine like the heart rate's going, the fingernails are non-existent. Like, what's it like as a coach and a management, knowing that ultimately, yeah, you can make changes, you can talk tactics, you can give instructions, but I guess ultimately there's nothing you can do. You're not on the pitch. Like, what's that like? What's going through your head? Like,
yeah, again, for me, it's my first real experience of it. As I say, I've always been a player. Obviously, I had a tiny little, spell the season before, but this last season was my real sort of first real looking at it from a sideline. And like you said, me probably more so than, as I say, Gary and Jay, it's tough, because there's at points you look at the game and go, I wished I was out there. I wished I was doing this.
I would have scored that.
Well, maybe not that, but I could potentially have affected this bit of the game or something like that. So for me at the minute as well, it was I'm learning that bit as we go along. But again, we worked really hard all season on getting things right, and we had and I keep saying it, and I know it sounds like a stuck record, but we had a really, really, really good group that was buying into everything that the gaffer, Jay, myself wanted them to do. And it was one of them games again, like through lots of the game through the season, we'd give them all the details. The boys knew exactly what they needed to do, and we had full trust in them. So as much as some of it at times were, come on boys, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, especially first half, there was always that belief that we get it right, we do what we're good at, and we was going to get that result. And like I said, I felt like from the start, obviously the first half didn't plan out how we wanted it to, but then, as I say, from half time, the way the boys come out, the second half, I honestly believed that there was no way we was never going to go on to win that game.
Was it tough to sort of let go, making that transition from player to manager? Was that a tough transition to make? Like, were your emotions like at the time, knowing that was going to be your last season? So obviously going back a little bit before last season, but was that a tough transition, emotional one, or it just the time was right?
No, it's tough, and let's say I still, I'll be totally honest, and I'm, I'm not going to sit here and lie. I still struggle a little bit now. Football's been my life, since I was 6, playing wise. But like I said, last season, helped that because of the season that we did have, the way that the boys, reacted to myself as well. That transition from being a player with a lot of them boys in that group to then changing and being on the management side of it, you have to get sort of a different balance, if that makes sense. You're not quite, in the dressing room all the time with that player sort of banner. You've got to separate yourself a little bit from them. So yeah, I've been learning, still learning. Yes, it's a tough tough transition for me. Obviously, as I say, that season made it, easier for me in terms of it was, such a successful season. perfect way, I believe, to start sort of the management journey.
Yeah,
that
hard
I
to get
wanna
much
go
better.
on. Yeah, so that made it easier. But even cracking on to this season now, I'm loving it. I really enjoy coming in to training. As I say, the boys again are brilliant at the minute. So yeah, we just need to keep working hard and cracking on this season.
Perfect. And, the reason I sort of started with obviously last season in Sittingbourne, and obviously you say there it was really your first sort of season into management, obviously when you stepped away, but it wasn't really your first season into management, was it? Because the season before, which was your, first, I say season, but it was more like sort of 10, 12 games, whatever it was. For people that don't know, or perhaps people that are just listening to this who are not a Burgess fan, Burgess had a sort of managerial change probably February, March time, 2 seasons ago. Unexpected managerial change, and Lewis at the time was playing for us and was captain, and I think he'll probably be able to tell me better what happened, but it was essentially like we need to stay up, we need to survive, we don't want to make wholesale changes, we need somebody who's here and now, and you alongside obviously other people decided to basically take the reins, step up and sort of lead the team. Obviously that ended up with the scenes that people are familiar with here, where we stayed up on the last day. We were all waiting to find out the results of other games, weren't we, because we didn't know, one goal could have changed the course of the next 18 months for us basically, which is mad to look back on. But just sort of going back to that, I know it was a bit of time ago, but I mean, firstly, how was that sort of not season, but those last sort of 10 games or so in particular? Was it an easy decision? I suppose when whoever it was that asked you, was it easy to sort of take over, and sort of how relieved and how sort of how much did it take out of you? That sort of ending to that season.
Well, firstly, to answer the first sort of question, it was an easy decision for me. I was, never going to say no. Like I've said to a number of people that know me down here, I've been here for, I think this is my 5th season now down at Burgess Hill, and absolutely love the club. I had a small spell away that, again, we won't get into for a situation that was out of my control, really. Yep. But yeah, so in terms of taking that role as the interim manager, it was never going to be a no. Was it a tough job? Yes. Was it something that I wanted to sort of throw myself into? Yes. That's just the way I am. I always, back my own ability and believe that I'll give it 110%, and that's all I can ever do. If that, obviously we know how the situation ended, but in the back of my head, I was always telling myself, if it didn't quite go the way we wanted it to, as long as I can look at myself and the Dean who I brought in, people know Dean Summit who I brought in, as long as we can look at ourselves and say we did everything we possibly could, that was all I could do. So in terms of that, I was never going to say no. And again, I know I've said it a few times, but again, even the group we had there, people like, Max Miller at the time, Spinksy was there at the time. I brought in Nathan Daly, who I know really well. Isaiah, who I brought in, the winger and stuff like that I know. We had players that obviously everyone, again, I was there for 8 games, I think it was in total I had, and they all bought into it, and it was a real tough situation. A lot of them boys, other than a couple that I brought in, had been through, like you said, managerial changes. It was not the season anyone was expecting. And they all, really bought into, again, what we was doing. We knew what we had to do to achieve it. We got the results we needed, by hook or crook. And like you said, again, it goes back to the fans deserved what they saw in the end of the last game of that season, where we stayed up with a draw. Yes, it was anxious last couple of minutes, because I can't remember who it was, but I think it was
East Grinstead VCD.
East Grinstead. If VCD scored, if East Grinstead scored 1, we was down, I believe. Is that right? Correct?
Or I think we'd have been in that relegation playoff.
Or in a relegation playoff. So it was an anxious few minutes. But again, when that the whistle went at that game as well, and we got the results, the scenes were something again that I'll never forget. Yeah. And from a personal point of view, I'd done the sort of job that I'd been asked to do with the situation I'd been left in. Of course, I would have liked a couple more wins that would have, not even worried about that last day. But with the situation I was left in, for me, I felt like we'd done a good job, and we did exactly what we was asked to do when I got offered the interim role.
Absolutely. And just sort of finishing up on that, and there's actually, again, a reason why I sort of bring that up specifically. I'm not, you might be aware of this, or you might not be aware of this, but previously, and we've had Dan Perry here on this podcast, and I'm not sure if you remember this, Lynden, what I'm about to say, but we spoke to Dan Perry, obviously, in depth, and we sort of mentioned that, spell that you had, and obviously that particular game with Beckenham where we drew to stay up. And obviously, you mentioned there that when you come in for those last 8 games, everyone you had bought into what you were doing, like you say, as long as everyone gave their all, as long as everyone thought your job was essentially done, which they did. And I just want to sort of mention a point which sort of sums that up. Dan Perry come and spoke to us, and he said on the day of that Beckenham game and leading up to it, he said he's never been so ill in his life. He said he was absolutely sick all through the week, and he said that I should not have been anywhere near the football club for that week. He was like, I shouldn't have played that game. I should have been nowhere near it. But we were like, so why did you play? Like, if you were so ill, everyone would have understood. And he was like, I couldn't let the club down, but I couldn't let Lewis Taylor down. Because of the respect he had for you, because he knew that it was everyone needed to pull together, and he just said, I can't remember if he said if he told you afterwards or not, but he couldn't remember if you actually knew that story or not. But it was like everyone, my family was telling me I need to message Lewis and say, look, I can't do it, I'm really ill, and it was like I have to play, and he was like as soon as the full-time whistle finished, he was like I basically almost collapsed because it was felt so unwell. But that's the sort of thing that just sort of going back to, everyone bought in, everyone worked hard for you, and even things like that, which must make you feel pretty happy.
Yeah, of course. And I did. I think if I remember rightly, I think Dan actually told me. I think it was a couple of days after the Beckenham game. He mentioned it to me briefly, but yeah, as you go back, that goes back to, like I said, I've got I could speak highly about every single player that was in that dressing room. Obviously, we'd run out of time, but Dan Perry, like you just said there, that sums up what those boys that season did for me. And like I said, I'm one of them. I'm very, very early into this stage of my career now. What I call stage 2 of my career. I want to go on and see how far I can go on this journey. Like I said, I've always wanted to just be the best version of me. I'm not saying I'm ever going to be the best coach, the best manager, but what I do back myself at is I do feel like I can get that sort of respect and all that from the boys, and I will give that back to them. So anything I ask them to do, I would never not expect, or I would never have done it not myself on the pitch. And that group, like I said, Dan Perry, Spinksy, Miller, Daly, Dave Martin, Isaiah, as I brought in, Hayden Skerry, I think was there at the time, etc. Yeah, they all, like I said, I can't speak highly enough of all of them. I've probably missed a few, which, as I say, Will Huffer was the goalie, I believe, at the time. Yep. I can't speak highly enough of them for what they did for me. And like I said, hopefully now that's just, a start of, when I keep growing as a coach and as a manager, players, will sort of understand that, and we can keep working together and keep sort of, having that sort of respect between each other, because I believe that that's, a big factor of being a manager. If you can be, truthful, respectful, and ask players to do, what they need to do in the right way, then I feel like, you're sort of 50, 60, 70% there anyway, because a lot of the boys have got the talent. They just need to be managed the right way. Absolutely.
Well, look, I mean, you sort of summed up really, really well there. Obviously, this is a Burgess Hill podcast, obviously, but I do just want to sort of touch on a little bit sort of earlier in your career as well, a little bit before Burgess Hill, even
years ago.
Years ago. The sort of first memory I'm going to throw at you is years ago. This is pretty early in your career, and I think when you first came to the club, obviously everyone sort of does their own, Google's a name, where have they played, who have they played for, all that sort of stuff. But if you sort of put Lewis Taylor, footballer, into any sort of Google search, there's a penalty kick in the FA Cup that sort of comes up pretty often. Do you want to tell us a little story about that? Swansea Horsham, I believe.
Yeah. So don't ask me the year and the dates, because I'm rubbish with years and stuff like that.
Jack will know it anyway. Don't worry.
But yes, I can remember that. As I say, that I do remember I was 20, I believe it was 19 or 20. But yes, I was at Horsham. To be honest with you, the game should never have even been on. I'll be totally honest with you. The game should never, ever have been on.
What, pitch?
Yeah, it was a terrible night. The rain had been raining all day, to the point where, because it was on Sky needed to get it on. I think at lunchtime, because the weather was so bad, they managed to hire or get a special cover that was sent down to try and keep as much rain off the pitch as they could. Swansea turned up. You could see on their face they had. They didn't want to be there. The weather was terrible. They could see the pitch straight away. So again, straight away it was. We're sort of. It's levelled the game to a certain degree, if you like, the pitch and all that. The rain never really stopped. I just remember it was one of them games again. We never deserved to still be in the game. I'll be totally honest with you. Swansea had probably 5, 6, 7 really, really good chances. We had Souks in goal. He pulled off 2 unbelievable saves that kept us in the tie. And then I just remember it went up to Lee Farrell, who was our striker at the time, and he got pulled over. I'll be totally honest with you, the more I've watched it back years and years, it was quite a soft penalty. But
we take them.
But yeah, we definitely take them. And then it was that season I'd always been on. I'd been on the penalties that season, and obviously again it was one of them. I was never ever passing it to anyone.
Absolutely not.
And I'd still just remember to this day I put the ball down, and I can't remember for the life of me now who the goalkeeper was at the time. He was the Dutch fella for him. And all I remember him was
Michel Vorm.
Yeah, Michel Vorm.
Was it Vorm? It could have been. I can't remember, but he was definitely Dutch. I remember that. Yeah. And all I remember him was saying words that I can't repeat on the pod, shouting it at me to the point where the ref had to go and walk and tell him. So I think he was a delay tactic. And as the ref turned round, I just remember him picking up a big lump of mud and trying to launch it at me just before I was about to start my run up. And then, honestly, from there, I don't really remember too much about the penalty other than it hitting the back of the net and then just running, and the celebration was terrible because I did a knee slide and forgot how wet it was and went straight into the fence. But yeah, it was, again, it's one of them moments in my career, for my personal, I'll never forget. And as I say, I'm quite fortunate that through the years I have had a few of them. And again, to highlight, last season was, again, another one of them.
Absolutely. I do want to ask this question, but I appreciate it might be very difficult to answer. If you were to say, looking back at your career, playing wise, I mean, sort of now, looking back at your career playing wise, was there, a particular match or goal or moment that you'd look back and say that was your sort of highlight in your career? Would it be that FA Cup tie with Swansea, the scoring? Would it be, a promotion you had maybe? Would it be I don't know, another sort of moment? Is there something you could sort of pinpoint maybe?
Yeah, you can even give us like your top 3, because obviously I'm going to assume that penalty, promotion last year are probably givens that they're going to be up there. So
it's such a successful time with Dorking as well. I know, just other things like that. Is there any 1 or 2 moments?
Again, it's one of them. I have been quite fortunate in I've had, as I say, even when I was at AFC Wimbledon, we had 2 promotions, back to back. As you say, Dorking, I was there for 4 years. We had 2 promotions out of 4 seasons at Dorking. So, in terms of that, I've been very lucky at that. And they all at the time of my career, they all seem to stay in my head for different reasons. And obviously those memories, as I say, will never, obviously leave me. If I had to put them in 3, and again, not just because we were on this podcast, but I would definitely say for me, last season, the promotion would be one in my top 3, 100%. Just purely because of where me and Gaz took over from the Christmas before, what we did, then what we built through the summer with obviously Jay coming in. So that was definitely, one for me, 100%. And also it will stick in my head that it wasn't quite the season I wanted playing wise, because I knew it was going to be my last season, but everything that went on in the background and what I was doing as my sort of second stage of my career sort of overlapped that, so I didn't think about it as much. So for me, that was definitely one. The goal at Millwall that I scored for AFC Wimbledon with Danny Kedwell when he back-heeled it to me and I put it in the top, and obviously all my family were in the crowd there. That's a memory, as I say, that I'll, again, never ever forget. You know, even my little girl comes up to me every now and then and says, "Daddy, can I watch that goal again?" So they all, you know, that will stay in my memory.
How early did you show that to her? From the moment she understood football?
Literally as she was in my wife's arms. No, I'm joking. No, till when she started liking football.
First few seconds of life. Oh, I know you've just been born, but have you seen this?
But I'm just waiting for the younger one. When she understands it fully, I'll be putting it in her face. But no, I'm only joking. No, to be honest, my little one, my eldest one, she's actually got into football now, so she's been asking.
Oh,
so,
nice.
That was why. And yeah, obviously the penalty, like you said, for Horsham, that sticks in. And I know I'll get crucified by the management staff and some of the players, but again, the overhead kick here, that will always stay in memory with me.
Yeah.
And
That's
again,
pretty much the only thing I mentioned to Jack before the start of this podcast is don't let me talk because I'll just talk for 45 minutes about that overhead kick. It was quality.
But yeah, for that, as I say, that was a good goal, and so there's a
good
lot.
Goal, good goal, great goal, good goal.
But yeah, so for me, it's very hard to put it in. But there is lots that I will take away from the playing side that will stay in my memories. And as I say, I've got really, really good memories of all through my playing career. And like I said, now I just hope that I can replicate that and hopefully, go on to do good things as in the management side of it.
Absolutely. Well, look, I mean, I was going to come on to that goal, that overhead kick, but as soon as you mentioned it already, you're obviously keen to talk about it, Lou. So I might as well bring it up again. I think it's probably fair to say that'll be the best goal you've ever scored, right?
Yeah. It's definitely up there.
It's got to be up there.
It's got to be up there. I mean,
I've seen you score a few, and that's the one for me. Like that's the top one for me.
Yeah.
Just 100%. I suppose, obviously, that was probably 3-4 years ago now. I remember it was at home, I think. What was the reaction like after the game? Because obviously your instant replay were filming it. Obviously, it's, then gets shown live on YouTube, and it sort of went viral in non-league terms because it's such a good goal, and perhaps people don't associate you with scoring overhead kicks from inside the box. So after the game, when it starts getting shown around, you must have had ex-players, managers, friends, family messaging you, going like, sharing the goal with you. Was that sort of what happened? Was that a bit surreal?
I did. To be fair, I did say my phone, which did go off for a good couple of hours after. A lot of them was, the sort of jokey, bantery texts that you get, like, you're not going to be able to move in the morning. How's your back? That was lucky. Did it come off your knee? Things like that.
Brutal.
But
did you mean to do that? Or were you just falling over?
Did you mean? I've heard that as well. Did you mean to? But yeah, it was just one of them. It fell at the right place, and I thought, why not? Let's give it a go, and it made it even better. That, as I say, I think we were 2-0 up at the time when it happened. And I don't know whether a lot of people remember it, but in the highlights when I've scored it, I run back past their midfielder and I give him stick.
Finney.
Then Finney gives him stick. Spinksy slaps his bum, I think, and gives him stick. And then one other, I think it might have been Miller or something like that.
Probably Miller.
That was just purely because...
Miller giving the other player some stick? No,
surely. Yeah, and it's just because he was giving us stick the whole game, and he kept, you know what they're like, he kept calling me old and can't get around the pitch and stuff like that. So, to then go and do that and run past him just made it even sweeter.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, I mean, I was actually just going to bring up the celebration because I was going to mention you and Finney specifically. So, such a good goal, and obviously from playing here, that's obviously probably what your certainly highlight is. There is another sort of point in your career that I want to sort of bring up and touch on, which might be a little bit sort of not controversial, but sort of unusual for a Burgess Hill podcast to talk about this. And it's actually your time and your spell at Dorking, which you had. Now, the reason I want to sort of mention it and bring it up is because Dorking and sort of Marc White specifically in general isn't a club and isn't a person that's massively well liked here. And there was an incident that took place, I think, when you were actually playing for Dorking, which we won't sort of touch on. But I just wanted to hear just from your viewpoint, because from what I know of Dorking and Marc White, which is obviously very little, everyone that plays for him, everyone that is knows him and perhaps has played for him or worked with him and stuff, everyone's got nothing bad to say about it. Everyone's got good things. Everyone is highly, highly respected. So obviously, like we just touched on, you had, I think, 2 promotions in your 4 years here. Just from your perspective, from when you were under him, when you were playing for him, how was your time at Dorking, and how was it working under a person like Marc White?
Look, I've said this a number of times. People do ask me that, and then you get, you bring it up, and you mention you played for Dorking, and it's like, oh, Marc White, what's he like? He comes. and again, I know it's easy to say, and people think this. You're just saying what you want people to hear, but I've said this, as I say, 100 times to people outside of football, not on podcasts, stuff like that. Marc White is one of the most genuine people you can ever meet. I know sometimes the way he comes across on, the bunch of amateurs and stuff.
Is he different off camera than he is on camera with a bunch of amateur stuff?
No, he's not. To be fair, that is, what you sort of see is what you get with him. But and again, I think that is someone like Marc White, and like you touched there, why a lot of people, when they've worked under him or worked with him, etc., will speak highly of him. Is because he is. What you get is what you see with him. But he's very, very loyal. He's very, very trustworthy, and he'll just tell you how it is. Now, I think a lot of people this day and age, that doesn't happen. And I think when you tell people the actual truth, yes, sometimes it's not what you want to hear, but at least he's been truthful with you. And I'm not just saying in a football perspective, like, if we'd gone out on a night out with him or something like that, and we was acting like we'd had one too many bevies or something, he'd be the first one to pull you and say, look, rein it in. You're acting like a donut now, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? So just that. But in terms of going back to the football side of it as well, he's one of, well, for me, he's one of the best people I've worked under. As I say, very loyal, tells you exactly how it is. You know exactly what he wants from his teams. Once you've been part of Dorking, you're part of Dorking. So I still speak to Marc quite regularly. Always welcome back down there. Always talks to me, gives me, some advice as well. Because again, where people want to, flatter that saying around about, well, he's got loads of money and that's why he's been to do what he's done. That's not just money. He's clued up in football. He knows what he's doing, and he's a very successful man to do, the promotions he's had. And you think he started from, a Sunday league team with what he used to call it jumpers for goalposts sort of thing. That's where he started from. And to do what he's doing now, I can't, honestly, and I genuinely mean that, I can't speak highly enough of Marc. As I say, I think he's a lovely bloke, really, really nice gentleman, will always give you his time, always on the end of the phone. And like I said, he's always been good to me, and I can't speak highly enough of Marc.
Would you say he's the best man manager that you've had? Is that one of his biggest traits? That he's very personable.
Yeah, I would say. I'll be totally honest, because that's the way I am as a person. Marc for me is one of them that you really see. He is just a pure manager. He's not a coach. He doesn't take a lot. Well, when I was there, he doesn't take a lot of the sessions. He'll instruct his coaches what he wants on and stuff. So what he wants to work on, what we need to work on, what we're not doing well enough. But in terms of his management skills and actually being a man manager, like I say, he would definitely be up there for me as one of the best I've worked under. Yeah, and and I've always said it again to people. He's always seemed to, even now when you speak to people, and as I say, even before I went there, you always do a little bit of research. He's always had a real good way of getting a really, really, really good dressing room. So bringing in boys that knows are going to fit the culture that he wants, how he wants them to play, and keeping that dressing room really, really tightly knitted together. And then on the flip side of that, knowing that those boys 99% of the time are going to run through brick walls for him. They're going to do what he wants them to do. And again, as a manager, I'm learning that now. That's all you can ask, sort of thing. If you've got that, then again, I think you're going a very good way of being a successful sort of manager in the game.
Absolutely, and like you said, somebody that you mentioned that you're still close with and still speak to and everything like that. So, like you say, a pretty good sort of person to try and take traits off and follow from. Absolutely. Just to sort of throw it back now to where we are now and to back to the present day. Just a couple of points to sort of finish up on. Obviously, with Burgess Hill, obviously we've touched on the Sittingbourne game and now where we are back in the Isthmian Premier. We're sort of 12, 14 games into the league season,
12
whatever it is. Yeah, we won't mention 12.
You've heard about this, right?
Games in.
No.
On one of the podcasts, I can't remember what podcast it is, we did a prediction. I said we're going to finish 12th, and I said it with chest confidence, and Jack said he'd give me 10k if we finish 12th.
So, and we've been 12 for
So
quite a long
we've
time.
been
in the
around there for
season.
so long
So
now.
it's going
I've spent that money in my head.
It's going really well.
Jack, why have you started to sweat?
Yeah, we were 12 for so long as well. By the way, so long. It's a running joke. But no, just obviously on where we are now. About third, let's say, into the league season. Again, we've spoken to Gary, we've spoken to Jay, we've spoken to players. But again, just from your perspective, because everyone sees things differently and sort of sees how the league and everything's going. How would you assess our sort of start to the season so far? How are you seeing the games? Do you think we've started really well? Are you perhaps feeling like we've left a few points on the board? Are you content with where we started? How are you seeing it?
Do you know what? I'll be telling you, I think you could sort of say all of them. Yes, we've left points out there. I think everyone, clear to see that. Yes, I believe that we have started well. Yes, again, of course, there's going to be a couple of games that we can look back and say, we should have done better. That wasn't a good performance. But all in all, I think if I always go back to sort of the start of the year, you think of the season we've just had. And again, everyone's in football, of course, when you come off a massive high like that, players, management, fans, board, everyone's on a massive high, and you just, all you're hoping for is to just go and just keep that run going. Again, football, doesn't always work like that, and this is a tough league, and as I say, I've played in this league, and you do start to see slight differences as you go up these leagues now. But yeah, from if you'd have said, what are we? As you say, are we 13 games in, 14 games in now?
Something like that.
If you'd have said where we are now, the way we've played, because again, I'll always go back, and I think Gaz is the same, and Jay, from eyes looking in, sometimes all people seem to look at is results. And I know that sounds silly because it is a results business, and of course, if you're not getting results, then ultimately you're going to be not where you want to be. But as a manager, and again, I'm learning it now, is sometimes you have to look at games and look at performances and go, right, we weren't far off there. If we tweak a few things here and there, we'll be where we need to be. We'll start getting results. And I genuinely think if you go through the first 14 games we've had, 12 of them, we've been in. We haven't been, outplayed. We haven't been outmuscled. And, for teams that we've played against that have been in this league for a number of years now, would be what you'd call a seasoned in this sort of league. People were expecting us at the start to be rolled over week in, week out. And again, that's credit to the boys that we've got. Yes, of course we need to work on things. Of course we need to keep progressing. We need to keep, driving to be better. Of course we do. But again, I think that's in every level of football. But yeah, to go back to, again, in a long sort of winded way, yes, I think we've had a good start to the season. Could it be better? Of course it could. I think that, the position we're in is a little bit false. Again, I do personally, because I think we have thrown a couple of points away. But ultimately, we're still only 14 games in of a very long season. And I say, with the squad we've got, we are putting things together. We've brought a few new boys in, which again takes a couple of weeks to get them all integrated as well. So I think we're in a very, very, good position. Now we just, as I say, just need to keep working hard, and I'm sure the fans, us, the boys, will start to see all that hard work pay off, and I'm sure we'll just keep going where we need to go in the right direction.
Absolutely, I think it's a very, very fair assessment on where we are. I think the fans you really sort of back everything you just said there. Really, I don't think anyone's thinking that we've not had a good start. Everyone's obviously, of course, as you say, there was one or two games where we're probably come away disappointed that we didn't do more. But like you say, for a club, just back at this level for the first season, for the start we've had, for the teams we've beaten so far, and obviously didn't mention the 8 away games that we had to start off with, which is totally unusual for any club. So for us to be where we are is very, very positive, which obviously means that it's been a fantastic start to the season. Just sort of one final point really, just to wrap it up in, and I'm going to be putting you on the spot really here, Lewis, so you're probably not going to enjoy this last segment at all. It's obviously to do with Burgess Hill. Now, obviously, like we mentioned, you're now somebody who's transitioned into the coaching staff. You're somebody who is very fortunate to work with fantastic playing staff here as well. But we've got a very very good, sort of youth academy, coming through the 18s and perhaps some of the younger lads. So again, this is a question that I've asked to Gary as well, who perhaps might know the boys a little bit better just from his background as the 18s, but from yourself, is there anybody, and I'm going to ask this in sort of three stages. Firstly, is there anyone perhaps in the first team who would be, in the squad most weeks that perhaps you feel like is perhaps on the sort of earlier stage in his career, who perhaps is going to, you believe if he continues will be a fantastic, player at the higher level in years to come? Perhaps is there somebody maybe who's out on loan, or perhaps just more on the fringes, who again you think that in a couple of years' time with a bit more experience could be exceed further? Or maybe is there a perhaps just an under 18 who perhaps people might not know of, perhaps who's just coming through, but perhaps is in training with you, who again you think that if this lad keeps it up, there could be a real player here. Anyone that sort of springs to mind, any of those categories? Anyone that you'd like to just sort of say one for the future, maybe?
Well, to be honest, that's quite a hard question, because we have got quite a few. We are quite fortunate, but yeah, if I had to pick one that springs to mind, and again, everything about him, the way he trains, the way he performs, even his attitude, when he's been left out a few times, and the way he plays, I can only see him, if he keeps developing the way he is. I personally think he's, an unbelievable footballer already for his age. But Harry Lawson, I think that boy, he's got everything about him. And even this season, he's come back and he looks a little bit more physical as well. A bit more stronger. What is he? I think he's 18, 19, still a young boy turning into a young man. He's got everything about him. As I say, yes, there's bits that he needs to work on, but again, everyone still needs to work on football. It doesn't matter how old you are, you're still learning, still can progress. But yeah, if I had to pick one, it would be Lawson. But we're quite fortunate. We've got a couple. I also think George, who's obviously on loan with us at the minute from Sutton. But again, if he carries on performing the way he does, and can keep his form up, and I think he's got a potential to do a lot in the game.
He's been one of my players of the season so far. I think he's looked quality in every game he's played so far, and I've been really, really impressed with him.
Yeah, no,
I don't want his loan to ever end.
Yeah, no, as I say, I couldn't agree more. I think he's been brilliant for us since he's come in, and like I said, if he keeps developing the way he looks like he's going to, then again I think he's got a good long career in the game as well. So yeah, again I could go and speak for another sort of 10, 15 minutes, but they would be for me seeing what I'm seeing. Obviously I don't get around the 18 as much as Gaz at the minute, and that's something that again I do want to sort of get around a little bit more as well, which I will start doing. But yeah, they would be the two for me at the minute, definitely.
Right. And I suppose just sort of finish up. Obviously, Harry plays a very similar position to how you played. That's the position that naturally the best. But I suppose just again touching on Burgess Hill, how important is it for a young player to have someone like Glenn Ray, who's just come into the club, sort of helping him next to him in training or even in matches? How important is that going to be for his development? Obviously, from somebody you've played centre mid, you've been there as a youngster, like we mentioned, and then you've been a senior player to Lawson as well. How important is it for for him to look up to somebody like that?
For me, I think that's massively important, and to have players like that, Chris Welpdale around him. He's only going to benefit from that in all aspects of the game. It's not even so much just on the pitch, but also off the pitch as well. The way they are, in the dressing room, the way they are with him. But again, we've got so many characters like that again we have built, like I said, a really, really good dressing room, and I just think people like Lawson and, as I say, George will learn, from a number of players from that. So yeah, that can only benefit them. And like I said, having Glenn Ray come in, Luke Gambo again come in, Spinks, and even people like Popey and stuff like that. They've played higher levels, they've won league at higher levels, so it's all experience that people can gain and take that from, and again that's only going to help in Lawson's development. And like I said, that he's got, I think I've said it from since I started seeing him play, like I honestly do think he's one that if he just carries on learning the game, doing what he needs to do, keep growing, being patient, because as I say, as a young footballer, you will have the odd couple of games and spells where you're not playing regularly. Just keep that attitude going, keep growing, and like I said, he's got a really, really good, career ahead of him if he carries on progressing the way he is.
Absolutely, and again, it's something that I know the fans can certainly echo as well. We're always big on, under 18s coming through, and we always love to see, the sort of youth talent that we've got here. But Lawson's somebody that just, it just fitted in right away, didn't he, into the first team? There was no sort of bringing him on for 10 minutes here and there. Once he was in, he was in. So I think that's a fantastic answer, really.
I find it hard to believe that he's still so young. I feel like he's been here forever. Like he's fit in so well and established himself so well.
I think this is his first year outside of being able to play at 18s football. Yeah. I think this is his first.
Well, I think
now he's just only the first year.
I think every season I must ask him about 10 or 11 times, maybe even 15, how old he is, because every time he says it, I'm like, you're getting younger and I seem to be getting older, but that's how young he was when he started in the first team. So, and again, that's credit to him. You got to be some sort of character to do that as well at his age, to then come into a first team and stay around it and then just keep progressing. So again, I can't speak highly enough of Lawson, to be honest with you. I say, and he's a really good lad with it as well. Really respectful, really good lad as well. Works hard in training. As I say, I can't speak highly enough of Lawson, but.
Excellent. Well, I think from my side, that's probably the sort of high important details I was going to run through in this podcast. I don't know if there's anywhere you want to finish this off, or if that's a good place to.
I think that's a great place to leave it. Thanks so much for coming on, Lewis. Really appreciate it.
I think really appreciate it, mate.
You've been really great, really honest, and really good account of yourself and the club as well. So it's been an absolute pleasure.
I appreciate you having me, and as I say, keep backing us, because the club's only going in one direction, and that's on and off the pitch as well. So really enjoying my time. Thanks for having me, here, so. And look forward to the rest of the season.
Yeah, see you at Welling on Saturday.
Look forward to it. 3 points, here we come.
There you go.
Thanks everyone.
Lovely. He'll just now frantically save it so it doesn't